Hello guys and thank you for joining me. My name is Eugen and today I wanted to share with you my first impressions on the Hero 565 fountain pen. I was really curious about this fountain pen because to me this model looked like a more girthier version of the 329 Hero fountain pen that personally I do like. Also, in a weird way, the shape actually reminded me a lot of the Schaefer fountain pens. I mean, if you just look at the shape, it tapers down at both ends and then in between it's pretty much straight. As a disclaimer, kind of a thing, personally I have always liked the Hero fountain pens since I grew up with them. Growing back in Romania as a kid, the country was, well, pretty much under communist regime. So we only had access to a lot of Chinese products, including the Hero brand fountain pens. I never had a Parker 51, and to me, back then, it never really existed, and found out only about them later on in my life. As such, to me, Hero copy lineup has always been closer to my heart. I actually still don't own a Parker 51. I will probably eventually get around and have one, but I never had the urge to really get one for whatever reasons. With that aside, and going back to the pen, the first impressions is that I got from holding it is that I actually really like the shape of it and the weight and the feel of this 565 fountain pen. I paid around 5.87 Canadian dollars, and I think, in my opinion, it was a pretty good investment considering the pen. So going again, based on how it looks like I mentioned, to me, it looks a lot like a Schaefer shape, being tapered at both ends, straight in between. Even the clip kind of has something about a Schaefer clip, even though this one seems to be a little bit longer and a little bit more curved. Um, well, on the cap is metal, obviously, as you can see. And on the cap, you'll have inscriptions for what I assume is the Hero branding and then the 565 stamped on it. Um, has a really nice classic shape with these stamped lines on the side, and it's like a striped cap basically. And on the clip, you have the Hero logo. Top it's flat. Top of the cap it's flat ended, and well, almost flat ended. Has a small conical shape, very small. And same with the bottom of the. Hold on, let me move the light a little bit higher. And same with the end of the barrel. With the, I assume it's a breather hole in there. Come on, focus. There we go. The cap is pretty much push-pull type. It's actually very smooth. I do, I do like it, and it's quite secure in there. And obviously, removing the cap, it will reveal a section with a hooded nib that when compared with the older 329 version that I kind of compare it in my mind is actually shorter, again girthier, and it has this nice inlaid decoration that actually is line up or compare with the other pen. If I have a, well, comparing it with the 3 to 9, I'm basically, as you can see, it's quite girthier than 3 to 9, and at the same time it looks like the section it's shorter and the barrel it's longer, and both have inlaid decorations on the section. On the 3 to 9 is not a line. I don't know about you guys, but I never had anything lined up on the 3 to 9. All the decorations on the section were a little bit misaligned. Kind of a fun fact. Going back to the 565, uncapped, the pen actually looks and feels very well, very balanced. Speaking of balance, oops, almost there. There you go. It's a little bit more section heavy, seems like, uninked. And then if I add the cap, post the cap, it tends to be a little bit more top barrel heavy. However, the way you hold it, uh, all that weight kind of rests on this ball of the finger, so you don't actually feel the weight, unless you maybe write like this, and in that case it will feel a little bit more top heavy. But here for me seems actually quite well balanced. No complaints. I would most probably like this fountain pen posted. One thing to note with the section, if I get the camera to focus, you'll see that the section has a pointed end. However, the nib compared with the 3 to 9 seems to come out a little bit more, which I personally don't like that much. I much like the versions of the Hero pens when the nib basically only has the tip of it outside and makes it for a much nicer look, especially when you write, because you only see that little ball of light that moves on the paper basically. If you, it's hard to explain, I guess, yeah, if you never use this pen. Oh, and the clip it's actually very good. It's springy and opens quite a lot. It's a good clip, I like it. Even though I'm usually not that crazy about clips, that's a nice clip though. And one other thing that I do like about the pen, it's how the bottom part of the section is designed and how the feed looks like. Again, compared with the 3 to 9, the section on 565 it's a little bit more rounded and it seems to be a little bit more bulkier than 3 to 9, and the opening seems to be a little bit larger, or at least gives you that feeling. However, the way it's designed, it's much more rounder. I like it. I do like it. Removing the barrel, and a lot of you will probably get scared by this, it reveals the, well, pumpy action of the filling system. I know a lot of people hate this, and I'll show you a nice trick if you want to considering. Personally, I don't like this that much either. It feels like a lot of times you're not able to get a good feel with this. However, the trick that I'll show you a little bit later might help you out with that. One big kind of a thing that I do have against this fountain pen is that they went through the trouble and made the pen a little bit girthier, right? Which is good. No complaints there. Makes it more pleasant for a lot of other people. They kept the weight pretty good, as you can see in the description below. It's still a pretty light pen. But so they went all that trouble, but they keep the filling system the same width and the same length like all the other fountain pens, which to me just doesn't make sense. You make the pen girthier, at least try and make the filling system a little bit larger. This way will allow you to hold more ink in it. I mean, exactly the same. The same width, the same height. As you can see on the older version, you have little less space between where basically the threads for the barrel starts, and then this sleeve, it's almost pretty much flushed with the bottom lip here. And here they just Why? Just make this a little bit wider and people can put more ink in it. Anyway, it's an odd choice, but they did it, and to be honest, that's the only thing that I dislike about this pen so far. I'll just grab a little bit of paper here just to see how the nib feels. Now the nib, initial nib without ink feels actually very smooth. I like it. A little bit scratchy on the reverse, especially on the drawing strokes, but probably will be okay with ink. If not, I'll do a little bit of smoothing on it. There's no bounce to the nib as far as I can see. It's in true nature, well, for this type of nib, hard as a nail, as they say. However, if you do want to change the nib, you can easily change it with either bobby nib or one of the fuller versions nibs if you want a wider line and a bit more character to your writing. Anyway, putting this aside, I wanted to ink it up with an actual new ink. Just putting this a little bit aside. I ordered from AliExpress one of their big 500 milliliter ink bottles. I have no idea what it says in there. All I can tell you is the number was 057 and the color is very similar with the color that you see in here. And when I got it, I got from them this huge bottle, this refillable bottle, which was empty when I got it. I just transferred some ink into it to make it much easier to ink, and they sent a free pen. That's kind of cool. I mean, these usually you buy them for like $1 or something. This was included for free. So for about $36, $38, you get a whole lot of ink, a free pen, and off you go. Not bad. Not bad at all. I don't know how good the ink is, but I really like the color that it had. A pretty interesting color. A nice maroon. It looks more darker in person. Maybe the lights that I have in here brighten it up a little bit. But I wanted to try it out and see how it is. And new pen, new ink. I'll see what happens. So, going to the feeling of this pen and the trick that I was talking about. Hold on, let me actually... One nice trick with this pen is that remove the sleeve and try and put the pen between basically your middle finger and your pointing finger, like this. And when you try and squeeze it, squeeze the end, pushing with your thumb, squeeze the entire sack and make it like a quick move and then wait for it to fill in and then another one and then another one. So basically, the whole thing will look like that. And then just put this in a paper, gently put that sleeve back on it, clean up the pen, and you're ready to go. And grabbing a little bit of paper just to test it out to see how it is. Interesting. The name is actually pretty good, I like it. At least it looks a little bit darker than I was expecting it when I was testing it. Interesting. When I was testing it, I tested it with a glass dip nib. So I guess the ink was flowing slightly different. Anyway, should be interesting. However, the nib, it's not as fine as I was expecting it to be. It's definitely finer on the reverse, but still scratchier. I'm probably not gonna like it that much, so I'm probably not gonna use the reverse. But this, it's actually a wet nib. Wet and more of a medium than actually fine, or fine to medium. But I have no issues with the pen. This ink flows very well, and the nib seems to work very well. Alright, this should be interesting, as usual. I really wanted it to be a little bit more red. I don't know why this here doesn't turn out more red. Maybe as it dries, or maybe the paper will make it look more reddish. Okay, so on this paper does, as it dries, it seems to go a little bit more reddish, which is perfect. Alright, with this aside, so new ink, new pen, and new idea. What I wanted to draw in today was actually, again, not an inspiration from one of my photos. This was taken on an Expire 400 Kodak film. I think I forgot about this film and I had it for like 2-3 years somewhere in a cupboard where it was actually quite warm in there. So the color shifted on the film, and when I took this picture and after developing it, I turned out with this reddish hues on it, which I kind of like, and that's the reason why I wanted to try this ink today with this pen. I wanted to give it a try and see how it's going to turn out. The sketch is going to be fairly simple, just two dry plants with three other sort of in the background, defocused. I'm going to plan to staple this, so prepare to see a lot of dots basically. And I don't know if I want to do something with the background, maybe put some ink, like 2-3 drops of ink in a bottle of water to dilute it, and then just give it like a nice background shade. I don't know yet, or maybe a border like I did last time, which I actually really liked. We'll see how that's gonna turn out. But again, the sketch is gonna be fairly simple compared with what I usually do, and I guess I'll get to it, and I'll see you soon with conclusions. All right, I am done and I am back. This one was a fun one as well, and I really enjoy working with this ink. It has a very interesting color. I guess it's what you will call a maroon. And sorry, I was just looking at the ink. I think it has a little bit of green in it, or blue. It's an interesting color. It's definitely water based because I used it in a couple of places after I used the fountain pen and it actually washed it away. So I have to come back. I had to come back and redo some parts that were washed away, like the sides here with the dots, and especially the center here of the whatever this is. And the ink, it's actually pretty nice. I like it. I think I'll probably get more inks like this. They'll probably last me a lifetime. Anyway, going away from the ink and going into the fountain pen, I had absolutely no issues with the fountain pen. It drew lines without a problem. Actually, the nib was quite wet, and the ink that I had in it actually worked out very well with the nib that I have. It was basically drawing a pretty nice line, but then after it was drying, I was able to come back and then basically kind of darken that line somehow. The ink was flowing very nicely, almost like watercolor, and the nib was pretty good actually. I haven't really used the reverse that much. It doesn't seem to. It seems to work well. Scratches a little bit. I did a little bit of a smoothing on it, but it still scratches a little bit. Again, I'm not sure if all the nibs are going to be exactly the same as this one. Most probably you could get lucky and get something better than I did. I mean, it's not that it's bad, it's just the reverse, it's a little bit scratchy. The writing normal with it, actually, it's pretty good. Absolutely no issue. And the nib that I had is more of a medium, looks like it, rather than fine. Again, these nibs can also be changed to whatever you want, with a finer nib or a footer nib or a bobby pin nib. So, what do I think about this fountain pen? Pros and cons, right? So, as pros, I like the shape of it. It's very light, well balanced from my point of view, a good size and girth. So, if you don't like the the other Hero fountain pens like this one over here, the 329, you'll probably like this one more because it has a little bit more girth to it. With unposted, it's actually a good size. As you can see, not an issue, but even posted, it posts really deep. Like I believe it's more than half. Yeah, more than half. And again, it's still a good size. It's not oversized. It's not but too extremely top heavy. It's actually well balanced. The nib, as I mentioning, it was pretty nice, pretty smooth. It wasn't the fine nib that I wanted, but it did the job for what I wanted to do here pretty well, not a problem. But if you want more finer detail, most probably you'll have to change the nib with something else that you want. And I mean, overall, it's definitely a great bang for buck. I mean, 5.87 Canadian dollars. This is pretty much a very inexpensive pen. Perfect as a student pen, I would say, or for just carry it around with you and not care if you break it or uh, lose it. Or maybe even as a present, right, for somebody that wants to start in uh, in the fountain pen world. This might be a great startup. Negatives, honestly, um, I'm trying to think of something negative, and the only thing that I can think of is that they didn't took the opportunity to increase the ink capacity on this sack, basically to make it a little bit wider using well, they had the space, they had the opportunity to do that, and they choose not to. And that kind of bothers me a little bit. It doesn't make sense. You changed everything, but you keep this the same. So overall, I really like this fountain pen. Was fun to use. I'm happy it's in my collection, and it will sell pretty well next to my other ones. I really enjoyed this one. I hope you enjoyed it as well. So I guess I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day and night, wherever you are, and wish you all the best. Take care. Bye.